We've seen a lot of champions emerge lately. Who are your champions? Not in the Olympics, not in the Super Bowl, in the faith.
These are not perfect people. These are not spiritual superstars. These are believers, sinners just like you and I, who have lived in a different way. They've been called to an eternal reward. Can't say that on Christian radio. I mean, you can, but that's the name of the podcast, you know? So I'm Therese Main. He's Jesse Gable. Together. Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
That's okay. I'm Therese Main.
I'm Jesse Gable.
And together we host a radio show called Main and Gable on Family Life, a network across New York and Pennsylvania. On this podcast, we've been talking about the Olympics, which has kind of captivated the world's attention.
Yeah. We talked about competition last time, talking about the role that it has in our world. And you compete to win. You compete to become a champion. And the Bible tells us to run the race and almost, in a sense, compete with each other to be more Christ-like. So who do you think has done a great job of that throughout history, throughout the Bible? Who are the champions of the faith that inspire you to compete?
Well, in general, I think that we have to look at what makes a champion a champion. You know, Olympic athletes, Olympic gold medalists don't wake up one day and find out that they're elite athletes. They go through hours and hours of practice way before anyone notices, over and over the same things. Their entire being becomes about this sport. And in a way, I think our faith is supposed to be the same thing. You don't wake up one day being this massively devoted Christian. You get there through reading your Bible every single day, praying all day, every day, by serving, by repenting. It's not just this one grand moment of salvation, but the sanctification that happens in your life is what makes you a champion of the faith. And I think you see that also in the scripture with the people who God uses. I'm always like, oh, this person. But then I look at their life and I'm like, oh, they messed up a whole lot. But that's what makes you a champion of the faith, is that you are an actual flawed human that pressed more into God than into your own. So I'm curious to see who you have on your list. I was more drawn to, what does it mean to be a champion of the faith and actually picking people out specifically?
Okay, this one I think plays into what you just said. This is probably, you wouldn't expect this to be the first pick as champion of the faith, but I really like Jonah. Okay. Now, hear me out. He's known for the whole running away from God thing, which is not champion behavior.
Not the best.
Not the best thing. But I sympathize with him. Fear is my number one enemy, always has been. I'm afraid to say what I should say. I'm afraid to do what I should do for God. And I often want to run away like Jonah did. And of course, then he's thrown into the sea, swallowed by this great fish. But within his darkest hour, literally in the belly of the whale there, he repents and he finds his courage. And he does follow the call that God has on his life. And he goes to Nineveh and shares the gospel there. Now, his story doesn't end. He ends up, being really resentful to Nineveh and wanting them to burn. His story's full of flaws. But is not my story full of flaws? It gives me hope that Jonah was a work in progress. He had his issues and God found a way to use him and make him better. Maybe he can do the same for you and for me. It's not an excuse to run away from him or to have flaws in my life, but it is security knowing that, okay, I still have a part to play in the story. He can make me better, one flaw at a time.
There's a section of Hebrews that is kind of this champions of faith section. The Hall of Faith goes through all of these people in the Old Testament who had experienced doubt and suffering and uncertainty, but they had this characteristic that defined them. It was a perseverance. And Abraham is one of them. He obeyed when he was called. Moses, by faith, they conquered the kingdoms. They were made strong out of weakness. Made strong out of weakness captures kind of this paradox of Christian faith. We don't get to be awesome in our own strength. We are made strong in our weakness because of Jesus. And I think Winter Olympic athletes speak out so much about what they learn in their losses.
Yeah.
There are not a lot of people who get up after they won something and say, this is the remarkable lesson that I just learned. But there's something about the agony of defeat. And so I find this encouraging because we do see these heroes of the faith failing and struggling and suffering, but we know that produces endurance, right? That's what Paul says in Romans 5. It produces character. It ultimately produces hope. And champions of the faith learn to look at hardship in a way that is not a punishment, but a means to refinement.
Yeah.
And I think that's really where your faith gets put to the test. When you have something happen to you that you would rather not, and you can look at it and instead of saying, why, God, did this happen? You say, what, God, are you teaching me through this? Mm-hmm. It's just a different question, a different perspective. But when I look at those heroes of the faith, especially in that hall of faith in the book of Hebrews, it makes me go, okay, these are people who faced some really hard stuff, and they came out of it still being faithful to God and his calling on their life.
You want to talk about learning from your losses, from suffering?
Okay.
Hard to find anybody who suffered more than Job in the Bible, apart from Jesus. But Job has it pretty rough. For like 40 chapters, his life is just miserable. Satan comes to God and says, oh, look at Job. He doesn't actually love you. It's just because you gave him all this good stuff. And then God says, okay, well, take all that stuff away and let's see who he worships. And of course, Job's whole family decimated, his riches decimated, reputation gone. He's covered with boils and sores. His friends finally come to try to comfort him. And in this whole story, he never curses God. He never blames God. He does argue like, I think I'm in the right here. I don't think I deserve this.
Right.
But he doesn't put himself above God. The Bible actually says in all this, Job did not sin. You know how easy it would be to sin in Job's spot?
Yes.
To just be like, God, this is not right. What are you doing?
Right.
If I was in charge, I would do something else. And of course, Job doesn't get an answer to his questions. He doesn't strive for glory and then, like the winners at the Olympics, he doesn't get to the top of the podium and strong-arm God into giving him an answer. He's actually blown away by what he doesn't know. God shows up and says, there is so much about this story and about who I am that you can't even see. Who are you to question me? And Job goes, okay, that's fine. He's not so much a winner in the sense that we might see on TV. Mm-hmm. He's more of a loser. He's like the last place podium winner.
Can you imagine the person who finishes last in an Olympic competition being like, I am the champion? But that's kind of what it is.
But that is.
That's how things work in God's, I hate to say upside down because really the world's upside down and God's kingdom is right side up. But the opposite of what we believe, like to lose everything is to gain everything.
Yeah.
To be the most humble and serving is like the most elevated. Like everything is backwards. It would be like, I came in last. Yes!
Yeah. How many of us have the dignity to lose the way that Job did? Mm-hmm. And still love and worship God the way that he did. He's a champion of the faith for me because going through just about the worst things a human being can, he did not sin. And it's what he didn't do that says so much.
So often when an athlete performs well at the Olympics, they're immediately surrounded. They've got their coach, they've got their trainers, they've got their family, they've got their team members. It's like all around them. And it should be the same for us as we strive to be champions of the faith. We know that Job was surrounded by some friends who maybe weren't the best people to hang around with. But in an ideal world, the Christian faith is not meant to be lived in isolation. If we're going to be champions, we need to surround each other and encourage one another and strengthen one another. Let us consider how to stir up one another to love and good works. That's in Hebrews 10. When we're in community together, as we're part of Team Jesus, Jesus, we get accountability, we get encouragement, we get perspective, we get people who push us, people who grow alongside of us, people who we can pour into, people who can challenge us and we challenge them and we support each other and we grow together in this faith journey. So in a lot of ways, it is like the Olympics.
Yeah.
The Winter Olympics. we get this picture of humanity's capacity for resilience and for excellence and for striving. And we are called to be a form of a spiritual champion. We don't get medals, but we get faithfulness. And we train with purpose. We endure through trials. We compete for an eternal prize. What we obtain goes beyond the history books. It goes for all of eternity. And we live in a world that celebrates victories that you can see. And we are invited to these acts of quiet perseverance and obedience that may never make headlines, but they honor God. So as we watch these athletes chase their dreams, we're reminded that each one of us is running a race. And this competition, it's going to end eventually. And that race is going to lead toward an everlasting crown. It's a crown that doesn't come through perfection. It's a crown that only comes through trust in Jesus.
We keep ending these with stuff you can say on Christian radio.
I know, but we can't change the name of the podcast.
No, yeah. Can say that on Christian radio. There wouldn't be many episodes.
Maybe we should just do that. Can say that on Christian radio.
Thanks for listening. If you liked this episode, you could subscribe, maybe. And if you really liked it, you could always say so by making a gift to Family Life, the ministry this podcast is a part of. Just go to familylife.org and find out more about what we do.
Our producer is Josh Allen. How could we ever thank you enough? Did you know that Family Life offers a variety of podcasts? Get up to date with Family Life news, including the Noon Report and the 5 o'clock reports. There's If That Makes Sense, a conversation for Christians in their 20s. They're all free and on demand at familylife.org/podcast.